faces close, but some never rest. When silence screams, we listen. This is dead and wrong.
Hi there, I'm Liz,
And I'm Sam.
and this is Dead and Wrong, your weekly podcast for all things dead. People, animals, ghosts, you name it. If it's dead, we are going to cover it. And today is a very special episode.
It is. I don't know if you realize that we sound kind of different. Well, it's because we are together in the same room, which is unusual, I know.
We are. She's actually sitting right next to me. So I get to wake up and bless her with my presence every morning. And by that, I mean Artemis breaks down her door and wakes her up with her love.
Artemis is her dog. Oh my gosh. But there's also another reason for this big special day that we're here. We're going to welcome Larry. Thank you again for joining us here. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Larry Lawson, paranormal researcher and a retired cop.
So the way that we thought we would do today's episode was obviously, Larry, we would ask you some of the questions that we thought of ourselves, maybe get some stories from you that like really stood out throughout your career. And then I have a small case that involves a miracle survival, a dead woman, and a possible ghost interaction.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then we'll go over the case and then we can discuss it.
Okay, I'm game.
All right. Dead and Wrong presents episode 22, Lilly and Lynn Groesbeck, featuring Larry Lawson. Do you remember your questions?
They'll come to me.
Okay. So we'll just start out with probably the most classic question. How did you get into law enforcement?
That's an easy one, actually. My grandfather was a cop. My dad spent a little bit of time, not enough to really spend a lot of time, but I had an uncle in law enforcement. And it's just, I don't know, just something I was meant to do. I actually wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to fly fighters in the Air Force. That was my growing up dream. But the reality was God, the cosmos, they always take you to where you're supposed to be. And law enforcement is where I was supposed to go. Now, you take my full first name as Lawrence and you take my last name. They both begin with law. Well, I wasn't going to be a lawyer. So I guess law enforcement was where I was supposed to go. But no, it was just something I gravitated to while I was in college in Florida. And it's a career I wouldn't change for anything. I did 40 years total between being on the road. I did a lot of time in training. I was the director of the this region of Florida's police academy for a number of years. It's just something I was meant to do. And I enjoyed every minute of it and wouldn't change it for anything. In fact, my daughter is now, I think, 16 years into the business. So she's actually heading towards retirement age herself. So
It's a family
that's just,
affair.
yeah, that's what it is. She kept it in the family. I've got a son who's with TSA and also with the Coast Guard Reserve, and another one, Sam, you'll like this. He's an RT at a hospital up in Gainesville. So that's my story.
Nice. So the next one, and this is honestly something I was curious about, and I'm sure any other law enforcement listeners, is what's the most important lesson that you've learned while, like, throughout your years of being in law enforcement?
Keep an open mind, and even more importantly, treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, sometimes in our business, we get a little bit full of ourselves. I was there, I get it. But really, we are a profession of service above self. We have to be part of the law enforcement, whether it's nursing, like you are, Sam, law enforcement, like Liz and I. Caring and doing for others is what it's about. And if you lose that perspective, then you'll never find happiness. If you're doing it just for you because you like the badge or you like the fast car, you'll never truly find happiness. But if you really treat people the way you want to be treated and do it for the service of others, you'll find happiness. So I think that and having an open mind are the two most important things.
I will say
I agree with that.
sometimes I feel like it's kind of sad where, like, I'll pick up a prisoner from one of the other places and transport them to our jail. After I get them there, like, the ride okay? And they're like, thank you for treating me like I'm a human. And I'm like, you are.
Yeah.
Like, you made some mistakes. I'm not going to treat you like a dirtbag for that.
How about this one? How many times have you written a ticket and they said thank you afterwards?
Not too many, but like, I think one or two.
But it does happen. That means you treat those folks like human beings. And that's what it's all about. That doesn't mean you can't be tough. That doesn't mean sometimes you don't have to drop the hammer. I don't mean on the gun, but be assertive. But if you treat people the way you want to be treated, the way you want people to treat your family, you'll always come out on top.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, what is your most memorable call while working within law enforcement?
My most memorable call. Well, understand I spent probably about probably a little longer than that. Most of my time was as an investigator, a detective. In fact, my primary function was crimes against children. And it was a case really, I'm just trying to, there's so many of them that really hit home. But I think I'd finished working a case where a guy had been hurting children. We'll just put it that way. And after the trial, the young victim came up to me and said, "Thank you for believing me." And we convicted the guy too. He went off for the rest of his life. And despite all the stuff that went bad after that, all the screw ups, we all screw up a little bit, but all the things that went haywire, it was that moment that I realized I was in the right profession. Just that little thank you for believing me. And that really hit home.
I can see how strong you are as a person for dealing with kids because I can't even handle our kids' stories. Like, they get to me very easily.
Yeah, for some of the cases I can handle it. I'm very good at disconnecting in the moment.
Yeah, we get like that.
But Sam, she'll take off her headset and then I'll just give her a thumbs up whenever it's done and over with. I get it.
Yeah.
They get hard sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen so much death. I hate to say became insensitive to it, but you get used to it. And of course, we all got this dark humor thing, nurses as well as cops. We've got this dark humor thing. That's how we cope with it. But having kids hurt, the kids are our future. And I got into that whole field by accident, quite frankly. But that's really where my calling was.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. What is this?
I was gonna say you could ask that question.
You can ask that one. I got my
Okay.
own questions.
Oh, you actually know. How long have you believed in the paranormal?
In the sense that we talk about it now, probably 20 some odd years. But my first experience was as I'd just gotten into the business. I was working in the Dade County Jail as a corrections officer. I was just barely 20 years old. And I had an experience in the jail. Now, I'd always, my mom was always interested in this stuff. She read Chariots of the Gods and all those crazy books back in the 70s. So I always had an interest in the unknown. I think that's what made me really want to be a detective because solving puzzles is where I'm at. But there was this incident in the jail where I was just, like I said, 20, been on the job less than 6 months, probably closer to 4. And they'd sent me up from the bottom floor. Now, the Dade County Jail in Miami this is the old one. I don't know if they've got a new one now, but it was 10 stories. So it was a big whole city block. It was a huge facility. And they sent me up from team 1, which they called the first floor, the booking area, up to the 4th floor, which was a floor they put people that were either on suicide watch or had mental health issues. And they were shorthanded. So what they would do is they would pull one of the rookies up from the 1st floor to fill in if they were short on the floors. And they pulled me up to the 4th floor. And there I am sitting in the control booth. And if you guys, I know you know jails, I'm sitting in this glass secured booth, lobby in front of me. There's an elevator here, and there are 3 wings, A, B, and C, right in front of me. And they go all the way down to another set of barred gates that led to the catwalk that went on the outside of the jail cells. And I'm sitting there looking, and I look down the center aisle, and I see a person walk by, tall, lanky individual, looked like they were in uniform, walking right to left. Nothing see-through, nothing wispy about it. Frankly, I thought it was the lieutenant had come up to catch us sleeping or whatever. It was midnight watch. Now, bear something in mind. The only 2 ways you could get up to the floors was the elevator that was right in front of me, and nobody came up the elevator. And the other way was a stairwell attached to the control booth in the back, or right next to it. Anyway, I hollered to the 2 guys in the control booth with me, LT's on the catwalk. Get out there. So they shot out the back of the catwalk. One went right, one went left, and they went all the way around and came back and said, Lawson, nobody's out there. So I'm telling you what I saw. I wasn't imagining it. I just saw him walk by. This place is haunted. Stuff happens all the time. Now, here's the caveat to this story. That center wing that I saw this figure walk by was the suicide wing. Now, this is 1980, so things have changed quite a bit from then. But back in those days, they didn't put bed sheets on their beds because they'd use bed sheets to harm themselves, if you get my...
Yeah.
So I had checked this wing myself. We used to have to sign the log saying every half hour we had to check it. Well, I checked it the second time, and I walked by this cell, and there was a sheet neatly folded up in front of this cell. Came out and said, "What's up, guys? I mean, what's this? You trying to be funny?" Lawson, you were the last one down there. And yeah, I was. We don't know how it got there, but here's the thing. This is what they told me anyway. And, you can always say somebody was playing a joke, but I don't know how they could have done it. That was the last cell somebody hung themselves in.
Oh.
Oh God.
I'm just telling you what happened. Now, I'm open to saying somehow they might have tricked me, but I don't know how they would have done it because I was the last one down there. But seeing that figure down at the other end, there's no question what I saw. So that was my first experience, and that really kind of got me intrigued. But then, of course, I went to the police academy, went to hit the road, was on the road, had some interesting things happen there. Nothing I could really say was paranormal. But the next thing was in 2010. I was actually the police academy director at the time, and my oldest son, who's 28 now, was just turning 11. He wanted to go to St. Augustine. Now, St. Augustine is only about 3 hours up the road from us, where I'm on the East Coast, just below Cape Canaveral. Ryan had been watching that. Do you remember the old Ghost Hunters show? Did you ever see the old Ghost Hunters show with Jason and Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. They had done an episode in the lighthouse where they had a camera at the base of the spiral stairs shooting up, and they got a figure leaning over. You could see the head and shoulders leaning over, and a fraction of a second later, it was gone, and another flight up. Fraction of a second later, it was another flight up. To this day, that video has never been debunked. Well, Ryan saw that and said, "Dad, you got to take me there for my birthday." I said, "Okay." So up we went, got a hotel, spent the night. We were going to spend the night up there. Went through the first tour, Dark of the Moon tour. If you like this stuff, the Dark of the Moon tour at the St. Augustine Lighthouse, highly recommended. And we went in there, went to the tour. Ryan said, "Dad, can we do it again?" Well, yeah, we're not going back to Vero tonight. So sure, I got tickets for the next 2-hour tour. And as we're doing it, the tour guide says, "Hey, you guys have done this once. I got a smaller group. What say I take everybody else to the lightkeeper's house and you can have the lighthouse to yourself for about an hour?" Cool. So Ryan and I go back in the lighthouse. We're about 4 stories up. Now, if you've ever been in a lighthouse, big, thick walls, you can hear the wind howling, but you really can't hear people talking outside, especially 4 floors up. And we start hearing some kids laughing. No mistaking it. There were kids laughing in there. Now, the backstory is in 1879, very quickly, they were reconstructing the lighthouse. The construction foreman had 3 daughters. 2 of them died in tragic accident on the cart they used to bring stuff up from the water. And since that time, they had been allegedly haunting the lighthouse. That was the story. So we're sitting and we hear these kids laughing. Both Ron and I heard it clear as a bell. So as a cop, what's the first thing I do? I'm looking for speakers and wires. I'm thinking they're doing something to enhance the experience, right? There was nothing in that whole place that could have done and mimicked what we heard. And it was that incident there that I said to myself, I'm going to find out what this mystery is. It's the greatest mystery of all time. Think about it. I mean, since the beginning of time, man has wondered what happens after we finish our time on this planet, in this dimension, or whatever you want to call it. Nobody's ever found out the answer. So that was the final straw that got me to investigating it. Within that year, I created the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, which included cops and some firemen and teachers, all educated folk, and we began to look into it, and we've been investigating it ever since. And my offshoot from that is Indian River Hauntings. I do local historical ghost tours in the area, kind of to share people with folks, not only the history of the area, but what we've learned too. So the long answer to your question that you didn't expect to be that long, that's how I got into this whole thing.
Okay. I
Oh, that's cool.
I think the only other question I had was, were there any cases throughout your whole entire time that to you had a, like, for sure paranormal aspect?
None that I can recall, but understand I was a young cop, especially as a young detective, and I worked for the state, the prosecutor's office as an investigator. I was pretty focused on what I was doing, and some would say I had a stick up my appendage at some point because everything had to be just right. Everything. So it took me a while to become a little more open as I am now. So not that I can think of that really I could say. Now I would be working a homicide case and I would get psychics that would be calling me and they never had the right answer. I had a very negative view, frankly, of mediums. Now, since that time, as I got older and I really kind of opened my mind a little bit more, mediums, there are people with a gift that can do certain things. But as far as on the job, no. To answer your question, once again, a long answer to your question, not specifically. Now, I've had some stuff afterwards, if you care to hear about it, that are not law enforcement related, but my law enforcement background really took me down a direction, but we can chat with that later if you're interested.
I would be
Yeah.
interested.
So I guess that probably goes into one of my questions. Like in your paranormal investigation side, has there been anything that you investigated where you're like for sure caught something?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there's first of all, let me put things in perspective. Nobody knows what this phenomenon is. Anybody that tells you they know what a ghost is either lying to you, themselves, or a little bit of both. We don't know what the phenomenon is. But what we do know is since the beginning of man, regardless of socioeconomic level, educational level, religious background, culture, anything, things have been happening that people cannot explain. I've had plenty of those things happen. The laughing in the lighthouse, seeing that figure that I know I saw in the jail, are two examples of that. But we still don't know what it is, and there's all kinds of theories out there today. Everything from the other side trying to reach out to us, to dimensions interacting with each other, different dimensions, and there's some scientific theories that go along those lines. Is it our own mind that's doing it? These are all questions we don't have the answers to, but you can't deny that it's happening. And to say that it doesn't happen is as crazy as saying every knock you hear in the middle of the night is a ghost, because it's not. So the answer really truly is somewhere in between. Now, cops, and Liz, you'll appreciate this. I don't know how long you've been on the job, but back when I started, you didn't talk about this stuff. You maybe said something to your zone partner, and you kind of beat around the bush, but you never talked about it because your boss would send you for a psych eval, fit for duty psych eval.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we talk about it all the time. In fact, I love mentioning this. Honolulu PD, whole set of videos. You can still see them on YouTube that outlined their officers' paranormal experiences on calls, in their station houses, the whole 9 yards, and they did a whole series of videos of their own cops having paranormal experiences. That's a great example of how it's now more in the forefront, and we do talk about it. So, there's a lot of this that's going on now, a lot more is being talked about. And let's face it, Sam, you're a nurse. I don't know what part of the hospital you work in, but I have a doctor that told me an amazing ER story, and he wasn't even a believer till this happened. But we respond and we're there in times of tremendous emotion, tremendous pain. Is that part of this where maybe energy gets imprinted on something? I don't know. I don't know the answers to all of this and that, but that's why I do it. So you got to be careful asking me questions, guys, because I can go on and on for.
No, I think we're both very much so into it. We're like,
But
keep
but
going.
but that's what you gotta know. We don't know what the answers are yet. But to deny it is as silly as saying everything you see or hear is a ghost, because that's just not accurate either.
So, when you're doing your paranormal investigations, did any of them stand out to you? Like you saw something?
I've seen 3 full-bodied apparitions since I've been doing this. Well, the first one I saw in the Dade County Jail. I wasn't actively investigating then. The 2 other ones were in a restaurant in, Fellsmere, Florida. I take that back. I saw an arm flash by me in the old school in Fellsmere, Florida, and it was just an arm with a plaid shirt. It was just the arm.
You're just trying to give you a hand.
Oh, and see, you should be a comedian when you get off retire from this. Um, that's good. I'll have to remember that. But, yeah, so yes, I've seen some things I can't explain. I've got some things on my website that certainly would spark some interest. One of the funniest things that we had happen, as I told you, I do tours. I love to talk history because history is a part of this whole thing.
It very much is, yes.
And I love to teach history. In fact, when I retired from police work, I wanted to be a history teacher, but I found out doing some substitute teaching that teaching really wasn't for me anymore. I was too old and crotchety. Anyway, we were in the school doing a tour one night, and I had a group of people, and this is in Fellsmere. I had my tour group downstairs in what was the Boys and Girls Club. My team had come that night in order to do an investigation when we were done, because at that point we were investigating the school quite a bit. And they were all upstairs. Well, I had this other group downstairs with me in the basement, and we hear footsteps come down the stairs. And the door to the Boys and Girls Club jiggled. We all turned and looked. We all heard it, but it was there. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, looks like it's going to be active tonight. But, my guys are here, so I better take a look. I better check it out. So I said, hang on, folks. I walked back up the stairs, went up to the second landing, and there's my guys there. They're standing there. And I'm like, did you guys just come downstairs? No, but you need to hear this. They were on the third floor where the auditorium of the school was. And one of my team members, there's a little boy that we call Billy in there. We don't know if that's his name, but that's what he responds to. They'd asked in the auditorium, one of my guys said, "Is this the room you like to be in, Billy?" Or something to that effect. Clear as a bell. With earphones, it sounds better, but this is on my website. You hear a boy, and there were no kids in the school that night, ladies. You clearly hear a little boy say, "Yes, sir." Now, one of two things happens here, okay? We either concocted the whole thing. We either made this up and created it, or it happened. Can only be one of the two things. And let me tell you something, 40 years in the job, my reputation means everything to me. I'm not going to fake a voice just for a little thrill. And nobody else heard. My team heard it. It wasn't like it was even being done for my guests. They were down, they never even heard it. But that was really very interesting. And I've got several of them that were we've seen things move. I got one where I've got a chair moving, scared the heck out of one of my investigators. We were in a restaurant. Probably, and if you want me to keep going, I will. I don't want. Do you have any
No,
more
you're
questions?
good.
you're
Okay.
good. Keep going.
Okay. Probably the most significant one in recent times. And we've had some really, really interesting ones. I think one was a case where I have a medium that joins me via the internet. As crazy as that sounds, I never would have believed it either. But his name's Chris. He's in England. The man's brilliant. He hates me saying that, so if he hears this show, he's gonna be mad at me, but I don't care. The man's brilliant. And I've gone to investigate with him in England. I mean, he knows his business. We're investigating a spot here where a woman had just died. Actually, was the host of this event where we were going to have this event. She had died like 3 or 4 months before, but they asked us to come out. They wanted to go forward to it. So my team's doing a prelim investigation. And I had Chris on there and we'd done a walkthrough. And I set him in this room. So I got to get the team going, Chris, but I'll leave the computer on. I'll be back to you in a few minutes. Now, this room just happened to be where the woman had a heart attack and died. He did not know that. We don't tell him anything about where we're at. So I come back a little while later and the computer turned off. And I mean, not just blank, the computer was dead. And it shouldn't have been. It had plenty of battery power. I power it back on. I get Chris back on the line. I said, "What happened?" He says, "I don't really know. But suddenly I saw this casket in this room. And then I saw it was the spirit of a woman look at me through the computer, and then the whole computer went dead." He had no idea the woman died in that room, but he got that. But here's the kicker. But he said, "Does this name sound familiar to you at all?" And I said, "Not to me." I turned to somebody who was attached to the house. I said, "Does anybody know this name?" Look of horror on the face, and said, "Yeah, that the person died here when they were 16."
Oh.
Hmm.
So I've got tons of stories such as that. Things moving, words being heard, doors being slammed. I had one time in a building and the door just pulled right out of my hands early. This is before I really had been investigating long. And we had the recorder going and I shouted as the door pulled from my hand and slammed shut. And kind of caught me off guard. But I'll tell the big one now. This happened about a little over 4 years ago. This happened. She was working midnight watch and got in a burglar alarm in this small house. Now, this house was built in the 20s, but now it was a retail shop. And these folks sold crystals and stuff like that, kind of that type of thing. But she responded to a B&E or burglar alarm call late at night. And she went there and met with the key holders, the owners, walked into the place and they found something on the floor that had come off the wall. Nobody could figure out how it came off the wall. And they're talking about it. And one of the key holders, owners, went into the office and pulled up the security camera and it was live at that moment. I quickly saw a shadow walk by my daughter. So she comes out and said, "Oh, we just saw this and, we're always having things happen here." My daughter said, "You need to call my dad." So they did. And I'm going to make this can be a long story, but I'm going to make it shorter. So they call us up. We set up an investigation. My whole team's there. The two owners are there, plus a couple members of their family. So they all witnessed this thing. And every time we do an investigation, we videotape everything. Equipment, we haven't even touched on that. The equipment we use gives us a lot of stuff to work with, but equipment can be faulty, especially in this business. So we videotape everything just to make sure we get it all right. So we're starting this investigation, and Chris is with me on the camera. We're going on, and really we're getting nothing. We're getting nothing. We're getting nothing. And the chain of events might be a little bit off here, but it's all what happened. Chris starts telling me that there's a little girl about 5 years old that's come into the room. Her name is Lindy or Belinda. About this time on our spirit box, we're getting the name Belinda. Our dowsing rods are reacting to the name. So we start talking and questions start coming about. We start hearing things that she's saying, and she's talking about how she lives there with her mommy, and she's 5. And all kinds of uncles come over to visit, if you get my drift. Uncles come over to visit, and she talks about Uncle Oscar was there, and Uncle Oscar didn't mean to hurt her, but Uncle Oscar took her outside. There was water out there, but it was an accident. He didn't mean to hurt her, but it was bad, and that's how she died. So right away, my antennas went up. This all sounds very, very familiar, especially with my line of work that had been in. So I went into cop mode and I started asking questions, like just trying to get an idea how she was hurt and what happened to her. Didn't get a lot of detail there, but I got enough to tell me something had happened. So now I want to narrow this down a little bit. I said, well, do you like TV? No. Do you like radio? Yes. So I start mentioning some modern songs and stuff. Do you know this song? Do you know this person? No, 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 no. So I start naming some radio shows. And I said, did you like this show? No. Did you like that show? No. Did you like Amos and Andy? Yes. So in this field, in the crimes against children field, sometimes kids can't give you dates and times. So at least in Florida, they allow us to narrow it down to a time period. So we'll use tricks like, I won't say tricks, but things like this to get us to, like, is it around Christmas or before or after Christmas? And so on. How old were you? Well, that's kind of what I was doing here. And she said, yeah, I like Amos and Andy. So now I'm immediately thinking 30s or 40s. Okay. And remember, this house was built in 24, so we don't know who was in there. I mean, there were all kinds of folks that owned it, but we don't know who lived there. And she's carrying on, and she's going on and on. And finally, it just stopped. It went dead. We'd gotten a lot of information, but suddenly it all stopped. Now, what was interesting is Chris said, and I don't know, I'm not asking anybody to believe this because this is a tough one, but Chris can cross people over. And he said, Mom's here and I can cross her over, but she won't go, which I thought was really interesting. She wouldn't go to her mom. So anyway, that all ended up. So, of course, the next day I called up my daughter and said, go to the station, find out if you've got any record of a kid being hurt back in that period of time. Maybe it was unsolved. And of course, she found nothing because back in those days, reports were just suggestions, I'm sure, because that was back way in. But she went to the cemetery and she talked to the cemetery superintendent, who then called me and said, look, I talked to your daughter, but I needed to tell you something. I had a family come down here from New York. He did not get their name, but they were relatives of a guy named Harold Fear, and Harold Fear is buried in the Sebastian Cemetery. I went out there and talked to the guy. He showed me the tombstone, Harold Fear, and that's what they came out to see. But they were talking, he said, about kids that were buried in the cemetery. And the folks from New York says, yeah, we had some other shirt tail relatives. That's my word, not theirs, but to denote like a second or third cousin or whatever. And this little girl died, and we don't know what happened, but it was really tragic. And her name was Belinda, and she was 5, and she died in 1939. And
Wow.
they went to her gravesite, and the superintendent took me there. Little gravesite, about maybe 3.5, 4 feet long, maybe 2 feet wide. It was lined in old rotted wood. Tombstone was a block that you couldn't even do a rubbing off of anymore. That's how old it was and how crudely it was done. But he said, this is where Belinda is buried. The gravesite was there. Now, here's the kicker. Folks can say, this is all, and I got other stories I can tell you too along those lines, but how did that happen? How did we know there was a little girl buried there? And it was kind of the grave was kind of cockeyed in the cemetery. It wasn't even lined up like you'd see in rows all the time. It was kind of offset a little bit. Nothing else really around it. How did that happen? How did we get the name Belinda? How did we get the age? How did we get all that information when we didn't even know she was buried in there? For folks that some might say, well, you knew this kid was buried in there. You're just trying to create a story for it. We had no idea, had no clue. Yet there before me was the grave.
It's interesting in how all the pieces fall together. Like about the paranormal realm, like you can see it, hear it, feel it. Like her, you could put all the pieces together. Like I'm just over here like radio antenna.
And that's all part of it, getting the information and putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I don't know if we'll ever find the answer, but I sure as hell am going to try till I can't do it anymore. Have you had anything happen on the job?
One thing, it was a new build. So that part of the area we're growing in is growing very rapidly. It was the kind of like there wasn't any furniture in it. The most of it was done, but like not even all the doors had handles on it. I want to say it was either an alarm drop or an open door. So we went and searched it. It was me and another guy. Mind you, it's like there's a basement, the main floor, and the upper stairs. We go in through the garage. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was an open door because the garage door and then the door into the house was open. And I was still new. I was still on probation, but was on my own. So they're like, this would be good, like searching for you. On top of that, like, why not? So we go in and everything, there's nothing weird, nothing going on. We don't open any extra doors. We just do searching. And then it's the basement and upstairs. So we're like, let's just go do the upstairs real quick. We start heading upstairs. We are on the open, not breezeway,
Landing.
the landing. And we start hearing something slamming. And my coworker, we kind of both pause and we're like, that's coming from below us. He like kind of quickly goes around me and we look in the basement door that has no handle. It's just opening and closing.
You actually
So
saw
he's
it?
like,
You actually saw the handle opening, closing?
yes.
Ooh.
And it was opening and closing. And I'm looking at it like, I don't want to say I'm not a believer, because in a way I do believe, but I'm also the kind of person where I'm not going to put myself in a situation that 100% makes me believe.
Mhm.
I'm going to ignore it. I ignore it. So he's like, just watch the door while I search. And I'm sitting here like, I'm thinking like paranormal activity. I'm like, I'm about to get dragged into this basement. He searches. The door is still opening and closing. Like, and it's not even like it's opening all the way. It opens just a little bit and then slams shut. Opened a little bit and then slam shut.
Was there any air conditioning going on or any
No,
breeze
it
going
didn't
through the
have it
building?
set up. And we didn't open any extra doors. So when we walked in, it wasn't doing it.
Was
we
it the
don't-
door latch? Did it have a door handle on it that literally had to?
It had no handle whatsoever. But we didn't open any extra doors. When we came in, it wasn't doing it. We start going upstairs. We just get to the landing and then it starts doing it. And then it stopped for like a few seconds. I'm like, okay, I feel better. And then it started again. So I was like, oh, come on. So he searches and then he opens the door and he goes, we're going to search down there. I'm like, no. No.
It was the basement door?
Yes.
You should add that in.
Oh, I thought I said, yeah, it was
No.
the basement door.
Oh,
And-
I hate basements.
And
Go to
so
the basement.
I let him go down. But
Did
I
he
stayed.
see the door? Did he see the door coming open and closed too?
Yes. And he still wanted, he's like, that stuff's not real. I'm like, I'm like, John, like, no. I'm like, you're gonna get me haunted. I don't want this. So he goes down and I just stay on the thing and I'm like, we push the door all the way open, but I'm like one eye on him and one eye on the door. I'm like, I'm not being haunted. And he searched the basement by himself, didn't find anything. He goes, we're good. Oh, I booked it out of there. I left him in there. I'm like, you can get haunted. I'm not dealing with this. Today, thankfully, people live in the house, but I like refuse to drive past the house.
Interesting. Okay. That's a pretty good story.
If it would have like, I could see it being air pressure if it would have been happening when we first got there. But it's weird that we probably spent 4 minutes searching the whole entire bottom floor. Never happened. But yet, as soon as we go upstairs and get on the landing, it starts opening and closing like.
Well, one thing that people always, how could the house be haunted? It's new. Nobody's ever died here because it's new. Nobody's even living in it yet.
The land.
The land. There you go. You guys got it. It's oftentimes, I would say about 80% of the time, it's the land, not the building. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Usually, though, I do my best. Like I said, I'm a partial believer, but I don't want to be put in a situation that makes me a true believer. Like, obviously, I moved into this house. This was the parish's house. So the church owns this house. I rent it. And at first thing she tells me is there's a spirit. And I'm like, okay, well, we've determined it's a cat spirit.
Told you this. Oh, Liz or Sam did.
Sam
Okay.
did. So
Okay.
I was fine with the cat spirit. I gave him a name. I like cats. I still have a cat and a dog. Well, then there apparently, and I just learned this yesterday.
I didn't want to tell her.
She didn't tell me there's apparently also a man in this house. And she said something yesterday where she was like, yeah, the man. And I'm like, what man? And she goes, oh, I didn't tell you.
And I described the guy to her, and she goes, "This sounds like my grandpa."
Yeah, when he was younger, like my great grandpa. I will say I did have one other experience when I was younger, which was like right after I signed all the paperwork to join the Navy and all that stuff. I woke up in the middle of the night in a pitch black basement, no light, no nothing. And I saw a figure standing at the end of my bed. He was a little bit of, well, I know taller than 6 foot, looked like he had like clearly old style clothing on and a top hat. And then I like fell asleep shortly after. And the way I described it, my grandma said was describing her dad, who had passed away by this point and had also been in the Navy. So I'm assuming, and grandma, who she is religious at least, believes that he just kind of took on the role of being my guardian angel and has just been following me.
Sure. Now, a lot of folks look at this stuff and say, I can't believe it's against the Bible. And it's really, I don't believe that it is. I believe that there's just some things that we can't explain. And let's face it, even folks, I'm of the Christian faith myself. But spirits are out there. They've been talked about in the Bible. They've been talked
Mhm.
about in the Christian belief since the beginning of time. So once again, what is it? We don't know. Do I believe it's always something evil? No. Maybe
No.
it's because that's what I want to believe, but no, I don't believe it is. So those are two cool stories. Two very
But
cool
yeah,
stories.
those two, though, they are the only paranormal I've ever had. And quite frankly, they can be the only ones. I'm good. They give me
You
just enough belief.
I have so many. It's crazy.
well,
Be
you work
quiet,
in the
Sam.
hospital. I gotta imagine, Sam, you've got some really cool hot ones from the hospital.
I haven't had crazy ones at the hospital. The part of the wing that I worked in was a new build. But I was walking past and I saw that the patient got up to go to the bathroom. Now, these doors are glass, and the bottom part you can see straight through it. The mid part has that
Like that foggy, icy look
yeah,
to
the
it.
foggy icy look, so you can't fully see in, but the bottom you can see the floor to the bed. And I could see the patient walking to the bathroom. And I'm like, why is the patient walking to the bathroom? So I go to open the door because they're supposed to call. So, you're on medication, all that. We need to make sure you're not going to slip. And you're supposed to call so we can help you. I walk in the room and the patient's sleeping. They're out cold. And I'm like, okay, great. That was, a spirit going. And then I remembered this patient's a double amputee. They're not getting up at all. So
Yeah.
those were legs that I fully saw walking into the bathroom, but it wasn't my patient. And then I've had another room where I saw kids' hands on the window because families bring kids in all the time, but I worked night shift. And there's kids' hands playing on the window. And okay, nobody's supposed to have kids in here. Go in. It's an empty room. There's no one in there. So why are the kids' hands on this window?
Now, that's interesting. Now, I've got an interesting question for you guys to get your opinion on.
No.
This is going to be, I'm referring to the old school in Fellsmere again. Place is filled with kids, but no kids ever died there. No kid was ever injured there. And it opened in 1916, closed in 1980. How come? How come there's kids in there? No kid has ever died there.
It could be sometimes spirits like to stay where they were most happy or felt the
Bingo.
most safe.
I agree with you. And we feel
That's what
that's
I
what
was going to say.
That's what we feel it is there, because you were talking about the fingerprints. When what was the basement? And there's not many basements. I don't know how much you know about Florida, but we don't have many basements in our neck
I
of the
come from
woods.
California. We also don't have
Okay, okay.
basements.
But cleaning folks would come in on Friday evening, Saturday morning, and clean everything, and people would come back and find kids' fingerprints all over the windows in the basement where the Boys and Girls Club. So anyway, I just wanted your opinion on that. I agree with you. I think it's they go back to where they were happiest. They could have died when they were 100, but they go back to where they were happiest. My
Yeah.
opinion.
Mm. Plus, I mean, I feel like sometimes it's not necessarily that the place is being like has spirits there, but it's like what's the word?
Residual energy.
Residual energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, they pass away when they were older, but the energy of their happiness as a kid is still there. So you're almost replaying it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big theories or discussions in the paranormal community. Is a residual haunt a ghost, or is it just trapped energy that is like replaying itself like a video?
I think
And
trapped energy.
and it could be a combination of both. I don't know that anybody's got the answer to that, but in the Marsh Landing restaurant in Fellsmere, where I've seen two full-bodied apparitions, there's a famous one. The owner of it, husband was the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida. She is a businesswoman. Dozen times has seen a woman in white walk from one part of the restaurant to the other. Won't respond to anything, just point A to point B. She won't look at you. She doesn't respond to anything. So is that residual? Is that just something that's playing over? So that's just one of those discussions. Is residual energy really a ghost or just energy?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
So
So Liz, how do being a cop, and I can talk from this angle too, where you're very practically minded. I mean, we have to collect evidence and take it to court, and it's got to be tangible evidence. How do you take what Sam feels, and how does it register with you in your structured cop mind?
she thinks I'm crazy.
She could think you're too crazy because here you are on this podcast.
For me, I believe what is in front of me and what is presented to me. But
Good
I would
doors
also
opening and closing.
yes. But I'm also like I am pretty open-minded in general. I'm also very I would say I'm very creative. My mind is very good at coming up with things myself. And I don't know, I think I've always just believed that is there something else out there? Yes. Will I put a name to it? No. And do I want to mess with it? No.
Fair.
So it's like if I can prove something with physical evidence, not even necessarily physical evidence, just like circumstantial evidence or the way people say things, the way people act, their emotions, like I'll even go based off of that. I think, like I said, for me, the spiritual aspect of everything is I'm like 50-50. Do I 100% believe in it? No. Do I want to put myself in a situation where I 100% believe in it? No.
Come on.
Because knowing my luck, I would get stuck with something bad.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about going into detective work, investigative work?
Yes, that is what I want to do for my end goal.
I can tell. I can tell. Keep an open mind, whatever you do. Always keep an open mind. Quick side story to kind of put this in perspective. I worked a case where this little girl had two huge black eyes. She's 5 years old. Huge black eyes. My first thought was somebody's going to jail for this. To make a long story short, after I actually investigated it, turned out that the kid had an accident where she bumped her head, and the doctors explained to me that it was nothing more than from the little injury where she had an accident and blood just bled into her eye cavities.
Oh, so it wasn't even like her eyes that got injured. It was something above.
Yeah. The moral of the story was I had somebody's going to jail. Once I looked into it, because I kept my mind open, it turned out it was strictly an accident. Nobody's fault. So
That is what I have learned with mental health. I'm a big psychology guru. I've always loved it. And so that's like certain things where they're like, well, he's crazy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm seeing everything and listening to everything. This sounds like it's mental health. Like, I don't think he's crazy. I think he is unmedicated. And I think if you medicate this person, they're probably going to be perfectly fine. And then later on, like I've run into this before where I run into the family a year later. I'm like, how's your son? And they're like, you were right. They're like, we got him medicated. We got him in therapy and he's fine. I'm like, the brain is, to me, one of the most mysterious and powerful tools. And it can completely ruin someone by like one little thing being changed, one little ounce of trauma.
well, it's that brain thing that you just brought up that we have to take in consideration also with much of the paranormal. If you get a chance, look up a thing called the Philip experiment, Philip singular experiment. It was in Toronto, I want to say about 1972. An investigative team came together and they wanted to do an experiment. They created a guy named Philip, created a dossier for him. Put him and take this dossier with a background, wife, kids, dog, cat, gerbil, whatever, put him into a particular period of time. And then they did a closed investigation over a period of time. They filmed it. They did audio taping, and they actually got Philip responding to them. They got tables lifting. They got all kinds of things. They got voices. all claiming to be Philip. But Philip was their own creation.
So
So it was one of two things. It was either the other side using that as a conduit, or was that what they were experiencing simply a creation of the power of their own mind? You guys remember a guy named Uri Geller? Real famous in the 70s. He used to bend spoons with his mind. He'd do it on TV all the time.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
Okay. That's just the power of his mind. So therefore, how much of this is in our mind? And once again, I'm not saying it's being made up necessarily, but I am saying you hit it on the head. The brain is such a powerful tool. We still don't know all that it can do. Something to
I
consider.
almost wonder is like for people like Sam, your friend Chris,
Chris.
your son, is that potentially just another aspect of the brain?
Oh,
Like,
I don't think there's any doubt.
because obviously, like our brains, no one has 100% access of their brain. Some people have more than others. I believe people can memorize everything. I believe they have an extra access to a different part of their brain. Is that
Sure.
what it is for paranormal? Is it not that, they select or choose, but it's you have somehow access another part of your brain that allows you to see and hear and feel these things.
Another antenna that some of us don't have, that antenna that can hear that frequency.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah,
know.
I agree.
my
I think that's a real good point.
Well, yeah, you're stuck with what you have.
I know. Sometimes I don't like it. A lot of time I will just pretend it's not even happening. Just ignore it.
It's not going to let you go, Sam.
No, it doesn't. It's like with those horse blinders on and just like do this.
Yeah, I'll tell you this quick story since you've already got me going. We're in England. Ryan, my older son, and I are in England investigating. We're at an old museum for this one. It was 609 Squadron, a Spitfire Squadron during the Battle of Britain. And he says, "Is anybody here with us?" And he says his last name. And he said, "Can you tell me the rank?" And we're hearing it through the spirit box, I believe. And it says Sergeant. You're hearing those. You hear the name. What rank were you? Sergeant. Real clear. We got it. There's no doubt about it. We thought it was really clear. Alan Feary. Feary was the name. We hear Feary. And then we hear Sergeant. We think it's really cool. Well, the week after I get home, Chris sends me a tombstone. Sergeant Alan Feary, 609 Squadron, died October 1940. And when I did the background on him, he got shot up and he bailed out too low and his parachute didn't open, so he died. But we got the name. We heard the name. It's not like Chris says, "Oh, I heard this name and now I found." We heard the name on the spirit box. We heard his rank on the spirit box. And then we got a gravestone with his name and his date of birth. And he was with that squadron whose museum we were in.
That's
How,
really cool.
how does that happen? So, but he's
I
a
wonder what in the museum was his or was something that he wore or used.
There was all kinds of artifacts in there that's hard to say. Or maybe Chris certainly believes, and I come to agree with him, that spirits don't just stay in one spot. They're not here just because they died. They can go wherever they want when they want. So maybe it was just that door was open and Sergeant Fury came through that day. But just a really cool story. But that's the sort of things that Chris can do.
He should be glad he left such a lasting impression.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I talk to him weekly now, but he's truly, truly a good man, a humble man, and the one really, other than my son and a few other folks, that have made me understand that there are people with your gift, Sam.
Yeah.
So
I haven't met a lot of people like me, but it's also I don't go out there and try to meet people like me. I feel like an imposter, so I don't want to go meet someone else and then be like, okay, maybe what I see or feel isn't real. So I just tend to just keep to myself or like family or friends. But I've always been like, if I'll say something and then it's, come through as that's true, that's accurate. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not crazy. Maybe this is real to me, but I've always like shoot it to the side. Like,
I think a person that's truly humble about it will do that. So I mean, that says a lot for your character.
thanks. I appreciate that.
It-
Yeah. It's fun though. Yeah.
But are we ready for this miracle
Yes.
case?
Yes.
So this happened actually not too long ago. It happened on March 7th, 2015 in Spanish Fork, Utah. I think this area was roughly, what was it, 30 miles south, 80 kilometers south of Salt Lake City in reference. So a fisherman is out on the river, obviously fishing. It's about 12, a little bit after 12 in the afternoon. And he sees a car upside down in the river. So he immediately calls 911. Obviously, everyone starts going. The car is upside down, partially submerged. There are at least 3 officers and 4 firefighters at the time on the scene. So they get in there, and the very first thing they do is they start trying to flip the car. They stated that the biggest reason why they started to flip the car, and this is multiple people stating that they heard an adult saying, "Help me, help me." But they said the voice sounded calm, it didn't sound distressed, but they clearly knew it wasn't a child. So they're working on it. They get the car flipped, and someone finds a baby in the car, 18 months old. They said they got the baby out. At the point in time, the baby was lifeless, but they started CPR and they were able to get the baby breathing again. They took her to a hospital in Salt Lake City roughly 6 minutes later. They did say that the baby was hypothermic. She was not moving. And even after they got her breathing, she was still very hypothermic. They did say that they believe when they flipped the car, the baby ended up submerging for 3 to 4 minutes. She was released from the hospital 5 days later. She had no sustainable damage. There was no damage to her brain. They said when her grandparents came and got her, she was laughing, she was happy, she was talking. Like, the baby that they thought wasn't going to survived with no injuries whatsoever. They said the biggest miracle about this was with the car being upside down, the baby was strapped to the car seat, so she was never submerged. So she was just hanging above the water. And her mom, who was 25-year-old Lynn Jennifer Groesbeck, they believe she died on impact. So in their minds, there's no way there was an adult saying, "Help me, help me." And they believe that it was the mom's spirit trying to get her daughter help, because to me, the craziest thing about all this is the car had been like that for 16 hours. It crashed at 10:30 p.m. on Friday, and someone found the car 12:20 p.m. on Saturday. So the baby had been hanging upside down for 16 hours. Mom died on impact. They found the baby. She had no main injuries. One officer was quoted stating, "It was clear as day. It was almost like a calming voice, but urgent," which was the help me they heard. But yeah, I thought that was crazy because it's not like it was just one person who heard, the help me. This was multiple police officers and multiple firefighters that said, no, we heard a woman saying help me.
Yeah, it was a woman's voice they heard. Well, once again, all these guys heard it. They all can't be crazy. The chances of all of them making it up are pretty slim, I'm going to lay odds. So then how do you explain the phenomenon? And the baby was saved. Now, how old was the baby?
18 months.
18 months. How does that happen?
To me, that is very unheard of, because even an adult cannot be upside down for a long period of time before all the blood rushes to our brains and we black out.
Yeah.
Because like I said, she was 100% hypothermic. It was cold enough that the 3 officers that were first on scene, they were treated for hypothermia because when they heard the help me, they just went right into the water. And then obviously they have video of it, of them, one officer getting the baby, handing it to another officer handing it to the one officer that started CPR because they didn't know what was going on with the mom at the time. They just knew there was a woman in the car still.
The only thing that I can actually think of that might have saved, the reason why the baby could have been saved, is that when we get so cold, our hearts go to a slow heartbeat, kind of like when a frog goes into hibernation. And it's like, I was trained for EMT up in Rhode Island, so cold weather, people going into ice water.
Yeah, They can.
And the saying is, if you pull them out and they are frozen and they don't have a heartbeat, they're not dead until they're warm and dead. Because if we can get them warm and start CPR, most likely their heart's coming back because their body went into like life-saving or sleep mode in a way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that could have been what happened to the baby.
Well, the crazy thing though is they still said because of her hanging upside down for so long and the hypothermia, in cases like this, like there's like almost brain shrinkage
Mhm.
because of the damage, nothing. Her brain was 100% fine,
Miracle. And I'm not saying that to be funny.
which they do call it. They call it, what was it? The rescue of Utah miracle baby Lilly Groesbeck.
Yeah, I've actually heard this story. And yeah, nobody can figure it out. But once again, for starters, the important thing is the child survived. It's sad that the mother passed, but the child survived. So that's the big part of the story. The other part of it is how did they know that child was in there and that voice?
Mm-hmm. In cases like this, I know some people are like, well, obviously it was a guardian angel. I think it was the mom. I think she did die on impact, but in her mind, she was like, someone's going to rescue my baby. Because they did say, even though she didn't make the smartest choices, the one thing that her family could have said about her was she loved her daughter. I mean, they do say mothers can do crazy things for their kids, like lifting cars if their kid's underneath it. And I think there is something that a ghost mother would 100% stay as long as she could with her baby, with the potential of her baby still living and getting help.
I like how you're the cop who doesn't want to believe in this brown angel, but you fully believe that the mother would stay there as a ghost.
Oh, oh, I think she got you on that one, Liz.
I know. I said I do believe
Open
in a
mind, Liz.
sense,
Open mind.
but
It's
I don't
gonna
want
make
to
you a
be
better
getting
detective.
like,
It's gonna make you a better detective.
I don't want to be waking up with like a ghost next to my face. I start believing even more. I like,
No, that's not
That's
gonna happen.
That's
Maybe.
very, 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 very small chance of that happening. And if it happens, there's most likely a reason for it. Why they want you to see them.
keep me unknown. I like being in my little bubble where I believe to a point, but I don't want to believe in all of it. I don't need no demon dragging me by my feet into the
Oh
basement
my
and
gosh.
possessing.
That,
This is what she has to deal with.
yeah.
Our other friend has to deal with it too. Even more so because she moved.
I moved away. So,
But yeah, I just thought that was a good episode. It
Yeah,
included, if there would have been an animal, it would have included everything in our opening, but it included a ghost and people.
haunted things. Very true. Well,
Yeah,
Larry,
that is our episode.
yeah. Appreciate
And I-
having you here.
And I appreciate you having me on. I had a ball just talking about stuff.
So, well, all right, Larry, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us.
Well, everyone, that is our episode. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it as he spoke with us a little bit afterwards. Sadly, you guys are not privy to that part of the conversation, but we may have some future guest appearances from other people. And I don't know about Sam, but I would like to have Larry back one day.
I would too. Larry's fun.
He's very fun. As a reminder, we do have socials up and running. We have Facebook, Instagram, and X. We are streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and YouTube. Please remember to give our pages a follow, as this will help us grow. And if you would like to reach out to us for case suggestions or personal stories, you can shoot us a message on any of our social media sites, or you can email us at deadandwrongpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to our special episode specifically. And we will see you next Sunday for another episode full of all things
Dead.
dead.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.